president of it. And um, I've done quite a few things and accolades that I didn't put on the slides. Um, I placed second at internationals. Not to mention, I also made quarterfinals in Harvard, Stanford, and UPenn, the big three. And I've also been the finalist for Hard House, which is the biggest um, competition inside of the summer inauguration. And finally, I've also been a part of the QSID, which is the entire Canadian universities, and at that tournament, I championed it. So I would say I have quite a bit of experience in debate, and I think that is probably clear inside of the manner of my voice as well. Not to mention, I've also excelled at business competitions. For one, been a provincial champion of DECA, made ICDC, and made NLC for FBLA twice, placing top three in both. So within that pedigree, there's quite a bit of acumen that I possess in not being able to first being able to experience firsthand business pursuits. I also have a separate for-profit that I help run, but I don't mention that because I don't think it's necessary. But very, very clearly, I have a lot of experience in regards to excelling well in competition, being able to handle what I think is the most important pressure. And ultimately, these are very important things when it comes to your university application, because many people do take the IB program as well. Many people also have the grades that are necessary to get into top universities, but they don't have the extra add-on, which I think are the extracurriculars that make you really stand out. So if you want to apply for the US, get into very well-placed in schools. And ultimately, one of the reasons why I decided to go to Northeastern over some of these other programs is like things like scholarships. So it's very important to do these things because they're what makes you different from the rest of the other applicants. So as per Canadian schools, I also got into Western Ivy, which might be a consideration for some of you if you want to pursue business as well as Waterloo AFM and Rodman Commerce, all I believe very, very prominent business programs inside of Canada, are part of the top five. So in terms of admission advice, I would say three things. First one is you really want to chase greatness. So make sure you have schools that you really, really wish to get into. Even if you think it's above your level, you can always get into it. The second thing is you really want to focus on essays in Canada, especially for business. It is very, very important not to only focus on your grades, but also to focus on the additional material, such as like things like interviews, such as for Western Ivy, you have to write a lot of essays. Those things make and find your application. And finally, you really want to study hard through high school. It is the most important thing you can do because ultimately these universities, they do not care about all of the programs, the extracurriculars you do if you do not have good grades. And that is the most important thing. And as well, if you apply to the States, your SAT score is also very, very important for you to ensure that you get good opportunities, such as perhaps the ones that I have available. So with all respects, I do have to part in a bit. So in contrast to the rest of the group, which I'm sure are free to ask questions, if anybody has any questions right now, they can message it to me. I can also forward it through Jared. If you have any questions, I'll be sure to respond throughout. But I think the biggest thing you want to focus on inside of your university applications and throughout this entire process is your grade 12 year is one of the most important years that you have academically. It is also very complex. I know grade 11 is also very, very important. But the biggest thing is you want to make sure that you walk out of the experience, making sure you know that you try your 110%. Because if you don't try your 110%, then you, in my opinion, have not reached your greatest potential. And high school is very pivotal to make sure that you reach that mark and are able to accomplish what you wish to do. And I think I'm speaking from my experience as well. Even at internationals right now, I think that I could have worked even harder. I think I could have worked like at 150%. Whatever you do, make sure you do it the best. Chase greatness, and that's my biggest piece of advice. So I'll head back to
Thank
Jared.
you. Oh, shoot. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Luke, for taking your time out of being in Texas. He's at a business conference thing right now. So very valuable time. So if you have any questions once he leaves, just forward it to me. I will forward it to him, and if it's something I can answer on his behalf, I'll make sure to do that as well. But moving on. Oh, that's not how you do it here. Okay, I click. All right. So hello guys. This is me. So I also go to the same school as Luke, and I also went to the IB program at St. Robert's. And like Luke, I'm gonna be studying business at CMU. So in August, I'm going there for business, and hopefully the plan is to also double major in AI as well. So similar to Luke, we're both doing double majors. Rebecca, who I can't mute you for some reason. So maybe try to do that yourself. Thanks. So Luke and I have both done primarily debate. Well, not primarily, but for him, but for me, it was primarily debate through high school. And unlike him, I don't just final, I win most of the time. So in 2025, what happened was I got a bit lucky and won nationals, and happened to represent Canada for debate internationally at Cambridge. And also he finaled while I won Hard House in 2025, just as a funny thing. But jokes aside, I primarily did debate. And I also did debate through my own organization, working with Benson Academy, actually, who was a big help throughout my high school career through Speakwise education, where we, hosted events, taught classes a lot, and just did things affordably for people rather than, like the many greedy institutions that run debate today in Canada. But beyond that, I have other things like clubs at school and volunteering. So volunteering is a really big thing for me, actually, and try to actually put yourself out there for volunteering and ask the people who are your, I guess you can say, the people who run the organization that you volunteer at, ask them to nominate you for things like awards. So in 2025, I was nominated for this like Ontario Volunteering Award thing. It's not that hard to get, but if you get it, it's a really good thing to put on your resume. So try to do that as well. And in 2024, I went to the YYGS, so Yale Young Global Scholars Camp. Hello, Nick. Please mute yourself. Thanks. So in terms of programs, I applied to the same things as Luke. Basically, we applied to all the like business schools in Canada. Um, okay, let me try to mute. Hold on. I don't know. It doesn't let me for some reason. So if you are unmuted right now, please check and mute yourself. Thank you. So like Luke, I also applied to all the business programs and got in for most of them. So I didn't get IB, he got IB, but we swapped around. I got Queens, and yeah. And also, so for the other programs in Canada, I applied to things that are also kind of business related, but also math and finance. So like Farm at Waterloo, AFM, and some other American results were University of North Carolina. I got that one. And I think I got waitlisted from a few other schools as well. So moving on to the advice portion, which is probably more valuable. I would say, so I'll break this down into different parts for both Canadian, American, and just splitting each of them up. But for both, which I think everyone should strive to do, so American and Canadian university applications, in my opinion, the most important thing, besides your ECs, because that applies for both as well, right, is your essay writing. So for America, there is the Common App essay that you either write, which is like, an essay you either write by yourself, a 650 word essay. And in Canada, you have to write a lot of essays for just, the overall application as well. And it might not be as long, but there might be different questions. So in both essay writing and in interviews, I would say the most important thing is to be yourself almost. Obviously, to a certain extent, you're not going to be fully yourself, right? You have to fake a little bit, but don't be afraid to show parts of your personality that kind of shine through. So if you're funny, then be funny, right? Maybe write things in brackets to, as little side notes to, show that personality, right? Be honest, because I think when you have reviewed so many essays for so long as an application like reviewer person who reviews applications for like universities, you can tell when someone is being fake and when someone is being genuine. So take that risk, be authentic, and it really helps with you standing out. The second thing for both university, so for both systems, is the things that you do. I would say the most important thing is to be dedicated to it. So when you show that you have been involved with this thing for very long, like a couple of years, or maybe your direction, like a lot of your ECs are like around this one specific subject. So for me, it was debate. For Luke, it was debate and like business institutions as well, right? When you show that you have longevity and dedication, it's more important than just achieving maybe one really, really amazing award or just having a lot of different organizations you're involved with, but never really being super tight with one specific organization. So that's for both. I would say that's the biggest thing I would say for both university systems. But for Canadian universities specifically, I can only speak on behalf of the business side and not really the the math and techie side. So that I'll leave it to the other people later on in the presentation. But the most important thing I would say is just don't really stress your extracurriculars if you're applying only to Canadian universities. You want to have just at best maybe like one or two ECs that are really, really good because the way the applications work for a lot of Canadian universities is like they don't actually ask you to list out 10 different activities you do, right? But they ask you to list out maybe one or two and write about them. So if you have one or two that are really, really good, make sure to keep doing them. Don't need to like stress so much about having a lot of different ECs. And of course, everyone knows this, like grades are the most important. But the third piece of advice I would say is apply to a lot of programs. Now, obviously, it's not a luxury everyone can afford, but try to apply to as many programs as possible because a lot of times you will get rejected for reasons out of your control. It happens, so just don't take that risk. For American universities, which I think I'll speak a little more on, the most important thing I think is for you to not be afraid to apply. So even if you don't have that many extracurriculars, or maybe your grades were not that good in grade 9 and 10, which they weren't for me, don't be that afraid to apply to American universities because a lot of times you will never know what they actually want in your applications. Some universities care a lot about grades, while some only care about maybe your grade 11 and grade 12 grades, right? And some care a lot more about your extracurriculars rather than your grades itself. So just don't really be afraid to apply. And also don't be afraid to apply to a lot because, like, who knows? Maybe one of the Ivy Leagues will suddenly want you, right? But you won't know until you apply. The second thing when it comes to applications, I would say is to really try to find your direction earlier on. Now, obviously, if you're already in grade 10 and grade 11, don't worry, you still have time to do so. But just try to find a direction to go into, right? If you want to apply for business, you want to lean into things that you can, kind of tie to the business aspects of the world, right? So try to lean into that one direction. Even if you think like, oh, I won't be the best, that's okay. You can still do it. Not everyone who applies to university is a president of an organization, right? A lot of people are just involved with it and have done NFC results in those organizations as well. The third thing, and I think this is really important, and it coincides with the earlier advice I gave, is to take a lot of risk when you're writing essays, especially. So the essay that I wrote about for my Common App was, I won't speak specific about it, but it's a very dumb idea that maybe most people won't think about writing. So just take that kind of risk, right? Because a lot of times when you're applying to university, everyone's writing something so formal and so sophisticated and professional, and maybe it's written by other people that's a professional that you hired to write your essays. But if you're just writing something that is funny, that shows your personality, why showing your other traits that are good for that university? Well, maybe it will work, right? And also it just helps you stand out. And maybe the person who's reading your essay has had a similar experience to you. So just kind of take it light and don't be so scared to take risks. And of course, finally, just apply to more universities. Don't be scared to do so. But yeah, that's my portion. I'll answer more questions at the end of the presentation. But so we'll move on for now. Whoever's next, I'll let you go.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, wait, I can turn my camera on right now, so just bear with me. Um, yep, okay. My name is Ethan Zhang. Hi, guys. I'm going to U of T for Rotman Commerce, and like Jared and Luke, I graduated IB from St. Robert's. So just like, I guess like they already covered the majority of things for business, right? Just like you kind of have to have a mix of extracurriculars and marks, but marks are ultimately more important for Canadian universities. For extracurriculars, I mainly just talked about activities that like kind of like showed who I was and what makes me niche, rather than like the more generic ones. Because I felt like they're reading thousands of applications. Why would they just like specifically focus in on mine, right? I want to make myself special and be niche. So, for example, I founded a LLC that ran a monthly membership for upwards of 300 people with a projection of around 7K monthly revenue. But unfortunately, we had to shut down early because of external factors. But through this, I was able to prove that I'm someone who actively enjoys putting my ideas into reality, like chasing money, just like being a roadrunner, right? And also, I'm like showing my passion towards these. And that ultimately, like, I think that's a very like deciding factor whether you're doing something for passion or whether you're doing something just because like you're being forced to, right? It's better to have like love for the game. So second extracurricular is debate. My achievements are not as flashy as Luke or Jared's, but it still does the job of showing that I'm a competitive person and I have this ability to go out there and present myself to a crowd, which is very, very important in business, right? You have to be someone who is social. And through debate, I was also able to make a lot of like friends. So beyond just university skills, I create bonds that last a lifetime, which I think is like probably more important than what university you get into. So I think for extracurriculars, you shouldn't just like get stuck into like, oh, which one is the best, right? You should do something you actually enjoy, something that you think the process will, you're gonna fall in love with the process, and ultimately you're gonna have a better like quality of life through that. And finally, this one's more boring, but just like I just like tutored a lot. I tutored for nearly around 4 years as well, which is like kind of boring, but it was important to prove that you are someone that is consistent and that you actually put work and effort into projects instead of just quitting whenever you're bored or whenever things get hard. So, yeah, I think it's a more stereotypical extracurricular, but then again, it is something that is like very important to proving that you are someone who's dedicated. As for advice, I guess like generally just work hard when it's time to work. So like when you get study sessions, don't just like doom scroll, and instead actually like just like do your work. And like as a reward, you can just like play harder when it's time to play. So like I don't know, when you go out, you can have more fun in knowing that you actually worked hard and you completed all your tasks. Second, I guess this is like also general, but also very important for business specifically. It's that you should be social and meet more people, right? So like universities alone, that's like not the deciding factor as to, you know, like how good you do in your career. It's more so how well you're able to network yourself and like show yourself as someone who's very presentable and someone that like people would want to exchange contacts with and, bring in internships and stuff like that, right? So this always starts by being social. You're not going to get anywhere if you're just like sitting at home studying and like writing notes all day, right? Um, and more unique to Rotman advice, it's just like get your grades up. I think like they heavily prioritize grades. So if you have high grades, then like IB also boosts your chances. But just like having good grades in grade 11 and 12 is very important. Grade 9 and 10, not so much for Canadian universities. Okay, another thing, just apply early. I got like my offer very early, and it was just very like like it gave me a peace of mind. So yeah, that's it. Moving on to the next person.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Sorry for the background because it's raining right now, so we're just trying to make it short. So I will just introduce about me a little bit. So I'm incoming mathematics and life science student. So as you know, I'm more on like a science pathway. So I'm gonna share some like uh, my I I club in the school to get a training during my school. And I also did uh, kind of like a club, but I would say not. It's more like me interact with different like facilities of helping new students about their like going. So I thought being used to their hours. So I'm the student who's gonna like interact with different school, like welcome center, gives volunteers, services, like government-based facilities, and to communicate with them about their like volunteer hours or even some work opportunities. And then for science, I'm the only science department tutor selected by teacher of helping grade 9 to 12 students of tutoring like biochemistry and physics. And then for some like advice, I would just say because for science for like science person, I feel like the only thing you have to do is actually to work hard because science has a lot of like contests, especially for grade 10 students. If you go into grade 11 next year, there's actually a big jump between grade 10s and grade 11s and grade 12. These 3 years they have like very big, I believe they have a very big like differences between like academic contents. It's as for me, I feel like grade 10 to grade 11 is a very big jump and I actually have like a lot of stress. But like few tips for me to kind of like get used to it is first, um if you're actually a very shy person or you're actually scared about like asking questions, I will highly recommend you please go ask questions, because if you're just gonna like sit there and try to figure it by yourself, I don't really think that's gonna works a lot. And then for stay organized is a very important part, because as you go into grade 11 and grade 12, more things gonna kind of like coming up to you, like your club and your extracurricular and your, even if you have like part workshop, because the work grade 12 and grade 11 have, like more, they have more tests, more quiz coming up, so you actually need to stay organized to know like what you're gonna do each day, and you're gonna what you're gonna practice each day. And then for review regularly, I think this is very important, because me in grade 9 and 10, I usually don't review, because as you know, grade 10 like and 9, you don't really have that much like work to do. But for grade 11 and 12, especially for like, I would say for biology has a lot of memorization. So you need to review every day a little bit, so that at the end, when you do like a big review for exam and stuff, and you don't really take that much time. You don't need to take like 4 to 5 hours. You just have to take 1 or 2 hours and to review, because you already reviewed before. So it saves time for your other subject. And then something that's like more of on yourself, I think you really need to take care of yourself, like mentally and physically, because I feel like in grade 11 I didn't really prepare for like getting used to in a grade 11 and grade 12, so like my health really get really bad, so it really affect my marks and my grade. So I think that's a really important part. And um the last advice I have is believe in yourself. So please, before you apply, you really need to have like a goal, like what kind of um, programs and school you're gonna go. Like, or-
Hello, Amy. I don't think we can hear you very much. Do you have an internet problem?
Okay. I think Amy left the meeting. So for now, we'll move on, and hopefully, when she comes back, we can finish this segment. But for now, Katie, it's your turn.
Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Gao, and I will be attending the University of Toronto Scarborough to study business administration. So today I'd like to share some of my experiences from high school and a few lessons I learned during the university application process. Hopefully some of them will be helpful to you. So the first thing I'd like to share is don't put too much pressure on yourself. Whether you're just starting high school or preparing for university applications, remember that high school is a 3-year journey, so you should find the pace that works for you. Like everyone learns differently and progresses at their own pace. So instead of constantly comparing yourself with others. Like you can try to find a study routine that works for yourself and keep your grades as consistent as possible. So like during the year's application process, I realized that many competitive university programs look at your academic performance over all 3 years of high school, not just grade 12. So I suggest you guys build a strong foundation early. Like it can help you have more opportunity at university application process. And my second suggestion is mainly for international students. Like if you are an international student, I suggest you prepare for language exam earlier. Personally, I didn't complete my IELTS until grade 12. So at that time, I had to balance my schoolwork, university applications, and also IELTS preparation all at once. It was definitely one of the most stressful moments of my high school life. So I like to say, I think finishing the language requirement earlier would have made my final year much easier. So if possible, try to complete it during grade 10 or grade 11. And I like to briefly talk about competitions and extracurricular. My own complication experience wasn't particularly extensive. So instead of giving advice on competitions themselves, I like to share something about planning your time. If you have the opportunity, I recommend participating in competitions and extracurricular during grade 10 and 11. Like by grade 12, you will already be busy with schoolwork, university applications, personal statements, and deadline. So completing more activities earlier can make your final year much more easier and manageable. Finally, I believe the first 2 years of high school are a great time to explore. You can try different activities, draw competitions that interest you, and learn more about different university programs. Through this experience, you will discover what you truly enjoy and what suits you best. So don't worry if you haven't found your direction yet. As long as you are willing to explore, learning, and keep an open mind, you will feel much more confident when it's time to apply to university. That's all I'd like to share today. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the best in your studies and future university applications.
All right, thank you, Katie. Let's move on to
Hello, Nancy.
Yeah, so my name is Nancy Huang, and I graduated from the Baroque Secondary School. And I'm an international student, so I just came to Canada like 2 years ago. So, and I first came to Canada, I didn't speak English very well, so I get to the ESL program. And I think what is most important is to learn the English in advance, such as grade 11 and grade 12 English, so you can get more time to prepare your academic subjects like physics and chemistry. In, and I got accepted into engineering programs at UFT and Waterloo. So I think it's also very important to balance your time and your rest. It's it's good for you to work hard, but you also need to take a rest, and to relax yourself in your free time. So that's all for the sharing.
all right, Jessica.
Okay. I think my camera's taking a minute to load in. Okay, so I hope I'm audible. So, something. Okay, so I am a grade 12 student at Markville Secondary School. Oops, go back, please. Go back. Can you go back to the original slide? What is happening? Okay, yes. And I'm an incoming Queen's Commerce student. So for my ECs and activities, I was the math director at Eager Youth Education and a teaching assistant at Olympiad School. I also did math, English, and French tutoring for 4 years, and I was also on the varsity football team when it was started at my school. And this year we got the second place in the York Region Athletic Association. So some of the programs I got into were Rotman Commerce, Queen's Commerce, where I committed, and also Western MedSci. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so my advice for you is to really focus on your essays and your interviews, because if you are the average applicant, which I would consider myself to be the average applicant, especially in comparison to some of the other speakers that have gone today, chances are everybody else has very close grades and extracurriculars as you. Not everybody can be the top ranked like DECA, like champion. Not everyone can be a debate champion. Not everyone has founded a bunch of nonprofit organizations or for-profit organizations. So your essays and your interviews are where you are going to stand out. So meaning those are the things that you really have to practice, especially if you are a grade 11 or incoming grade 12 student who maybe is not super confident in their extracurriculars and hasn't been honing them for the past 4 years as opposed to your peers. So that means that now is your chance to really make sure you have something that other people don't. So how can you get better in this pretty limited amount of time is that you should try and speak without a script for around 2 minutes every day. It can be on any topic. You could also like practice like advertising yourself in the way that is required for university admissions. But honestly, talking about any topic and recording yourself are great ways to hone your speaking without a script. So things you want to look for is you want to look for whether or not you have an appropriate tone, whether or not you're making appropriate pauses in between your words, how you're saying them, how many filler words you're using, eye contact, all these things. These are things that you can only discover and things you can only practice if you do it every day. And also if you record yourself and look back on it so that you can find any places where you're missing. Another thing that I really encourage everyone to focus on is to practice timed writing. So a lot of English courses do not have timed writing, especially if you're not in an accelerated course like an AP or an IB course. But I was fortunate enough that I took the AP course at my school. So our teacher forced us to do timed writing. And it was only through timed writing that I realized that I was such a slow writer. I could write things that sounded good, but they took ages. And you don't have ages for many of these applications. For Rotman Commerce and for Queen's Commerce, you have to do your application on like a platform called Kira, and they only give you like 10, 20 minutes to type out like a couple 100-word essays, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're in that pressure, you also have to think about what you're going to write. And so because of that, you're really going to want to practice, like practice writing well and writing eloquently before you're actually in this very stressful moment. Okay, so another thing that how you can get better at writing is learning how to vary your punctuation and syntax. So learn how to use things like semicolons and colons or things that maybe you haven't used in the past. And then syntax is like how you structure a sentence. So you don't want always to be like, I don't know, the same structure every single time. You want to try and switch it around a bit because this makes your writing flow better and also makes you more evocative, which is the thing that you're aiming for in all of your essays. You want to be able to evoke some emotion, but you're not going to be able to do this if you sound like a robot all the time. Okay, so next piece of advice is that before you apply, make sure you have a clear story. So applications really love to see a story because it tells you more about the person. So like a good way to think about this is like how you identified a problem in society and then like the steps you take to solve this problem and then the measurable impact after. So like you want to at least try and think it through like here's what I discovered, how I discovered it, what did I do to fix it? And then like maybe you can reflect your impact through I don't know, like observing a student or something like that. But you want to at least have a good idea of what you're gonna write before you write it, so you don't look at the question and you're like, I'm blank. I don't know what to say at all. Okay, and the last thing that I really, really recommend people do is try and read more than 0 books. Because so many students I know, they don't spend any time reading because they're like, this is so boring. Like, I don't want to sit in a chair and read. Like, how is this even gonna help me? So they only really read for school. But I really recommend trying to make this a hobby of yours because it helps you it helps you strengthen the skills that you would strengthen by doing all the other things that I mentioned to help you get better. So you can get better vocabulary because you just lifted off the book. You can get better syntax because you just lifted off the book. And you just learn how to structure a story, which is exactly the kind of writing that a lot of admissions officers or like people who are going to be reading your application are looking for. And that's the advice that I have to give. Good luck, everyone. You got this.
All right, next we got Jerry.
So, hello guys. My name is Jerry, and today I want to share my experience applying to Western University and some of the lessons I learned throughout the process. I hope my experience can help you, those of you who are starting to think about university and your future careers. So, um, when I first started looking at the universities, I actually wasn't completely sure what I wanted to study. I knew I was interested in business, but I was also very interested in aviations. So that's why I spent a lot of time researching different programs at Western University, especially the BMOS and the Commerce Aviation Management program. So, uh, one thing I realized very early was that choosing a program isn't just about getting accepted. It's about making sure it's something you will actually enjoy, and it's making sure it's something you enjoy studying and doing in the future. So instead of only reading information online, I decided to gain some real experience since I was interested in aviation. I booked an introductory flight with a flight instructor. It was my first time actually flying a small aircraft, and it gave me a much better understanding of what pilot training is really like. So, like sitting in the cockpit and talking with the instructor, and even getting the chance to control the airplane for a short time. And it's really made me even more excited about aviations. And it helped me confirm that this wasn't just a passing interest. It was something like I could genuinely see myself. So, and I also learned that uh, becoming a pilot involves more than just learning about how to fly. And before starting flight training, the pilots must meet certain medical standards. Like before of that, I went for an aviation medical examinations. So also I was a little nervous. The experience taught me how important it is to understand the physical requirements of the career you are interested in, and I'm very glad that I did it early because it gave me confidence and helped me plan ahead. Um, so then, besides gaining hands-on experience, I also spent a lot of time researching the programs themselves. I looked at admission requirements, like the upper year course plan and career opportunities. At first, all the information seemed confusing, especially when I saw things like modules and course requirements. But the more I researched, the more confidence I became in making my decisions. So, one of the biggest lessons I learned is that you shouldn't choose a program just because it should impressive or because other people recommend it. So everyone has different interests and goals. You can take the time to explore different programs, ask questions, and think about what kind of future you want to yourself. And another piece of advice I would give is like to start preparing as early as you can. Every university has different admission requirements and deadlines, and some careers like aviations require additional steps outside of the university application itself. So the easier you begin planning, the more option you will have, and less stressful and process will be. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Like I ask teachers, guidance, counselors, like that, and current university students is important to ask to, and even people working in aviations. Like every conversation helped me understand more about the program and career I was considering. Uh, so looking back, I realized that applying to university wasn't just about getting accepted; it was about learning more about myself. So researching programs, experiencing a real flight, and completing my medical examination and taking to people in the field all helped me make a decision that I feel confident about. So, if there is one message I would like to leave for the comment, it's like don't just choose a program, explore it. So read about it and ask questions, and if possible, experience for yourself. So, like those experiences will help you make a decisions you will be much happier with in the future. So, thank you very much for listening.
All right, thank you, Jerry. And okay, I think we've reached the question portion. Um, so yeah, if you have any questions, I see there's some in the chat. Let me look. But I think you can just raise your hand, right? And well, I see Jessica answered one. And Louisa asked, are AP courses necessary for applying to American universities? If you are doing IB, then it is not usually. Like the way it works is, for example, I'm taking HL high level economics, right? Because that's an overlap. But if you want to apply, and this is what I did, if because I don't have history, right, on my history course, and an AP government course, and none of those overlap with my courses, so it's like unique, um, and it's just it works. So in that regard, if you want to go to IB and take AP, that works, but just don't have any overlap. Haran asked, would you consider extracurricular classes like math? Um, does anyone else want to answer these questions, by the way? I don't want to just harp on by myself, if there's anyone that spoke earlier. I don't think so. So I'll take this gander first. So once again, Haran asked, do you consider extracurricular classes like math, writing outside of school useful? So I probably took like one or two. I didn't take anything for writing, but I think math helps if you want to learn ahead, especially. But it helps most if you're struggling. If you are struggling, make sure to take it. If you're not, even if you're just average, right? Because obviously we always want our kids to like strive for the highest grades in the class, right? But that's not always feasible. So even if you're just average grades for it, which is completely fine, there's no need, right? Like as long as you listen to class, but most importantly, you have to, in Chinese is 刷题, right? I don't know what it is in English, but as long as you do that and you find online resources for that, it should be fine. There's no need to take extra classes, in my opinion. Okay, Grace asks, and
Jared, can I offer my 2 cents?
yes, please do. Go for it.
Okay. So as for classes for math and writing, I personally think they are useful. Just because they help strengthen some of the muscles that may be, a little bit weak from not practicing them enough. Like things like writing, as I said, really help with your application, especially if you don't do a lot of practice, like inside of school or outside of school on your own time. Another thing I want to add is that writing competitions are a really great way to bulk up your resume without a lot of competition. Because not many people take writing classes, not a lot of people do writing competitions. So I personally participated in quite a few writing competitions, and I did win a couple awards, which I added into my resume to make it look better. And also, these are really great ways to win a bunch of scholarships, especially the ones that nobody really applies to. Like those ones are usually all essay scholarships.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jessica, for your answer. Moving on, I received a question from just privately, I won't list your name, but asking about basically how to decide between like medicine and engineering. And I received a question earlier about how to decide your path between like business and like other like sciences or like maths. If anyone who is doing med or is doing something that is not business wants to answer this question, um, please go for it. In the meantime, I'll just say in general, I think the most important thing, especially if you're earlier on in your high school, or even not in high school yet, the most important thing you want to do is join your school clubs. Just join a lot of them. That's the most important thing because, well, obviously, if you want to go into a higher position later on in your later years, that's a good way to start in your grade 9 year. But the most important thing is just if you join HOSA and DECA, right, you're able to explore both of those different sectors, and that's pretty good for figuring out which path you want to go down after high school. But you know, just in general, besides the clubs, probably just research online. So maybe you want Instagram, right? Like Instagram has a lot of different organizations running, locally or just like even internationally. You can just send them a message request or just try to apply for them and join their little competitions, and that's pretty good for exploring different pathways. Does anyone else have their thoughts on this question? If not, I'll go to the next question. All right. So Finley asks, is IB score very helpful after the score is converted from IB score to the standard score for Canada and US university applications? This is a tough question to answer because so we call these conversions. So it's like grade conversions, right? So if I get an 81 in chemistry at school, then it converts to a 97 on my OSSD report card. So that might sound very, very impactful and really easy. But in my experience and most people's experience at our school, it's not a super high thing to get. I mean, if you are really good at one subject and you get really, if you get like 85 in chemistry, right? It might sound really bad, but that converts to at St. Robert's, it converts to like a 98, which is a pretty good mark, right? So in that regard, it might be easier, but you have to understand that the overall course is harder as well. So the average score in chemistry is a 72, right? And that converts to like a 93, 94. So in that aspect, maybe it's not that great. But if you are someone who thinks you can, do pretty good, then it should be good. But also another perspective is that the normal OS, like the non-conversion OSSD grade, is not hard to get really good on as well, right? I have a lot of friends who don't have IB conversions, and it's very hard to consistently get, near perfect on a math test because you're bound to make errors. So that's a decision you have to make. I would say probably just take a shot. You can always transfer out of IB if you want. But yeah, anyone else have thoughts on this question? Okay. So Howard has another question. Let me read what Amy said. Oh, no, never mind. Okay. So Howard has another question. Is the St. Robert in program very stressful? Did you ever have thought to quit the program? So this is a little personal, but the program does become stressful, especially in your second year. So IB starts in grade 11. Before that, it's called pre-IB. So in your second year, which is grade 12, especially for me and most of my friends, the first semester of grade 12 was the most stressful like period of my high school, like by far. So we spent literally every day at the library just studying after school. And obviously it wasn't fully efficient, but we spent most of the time there. And it's because in grade 12 of your IB, right, or like second year of IB, what happens is your course all will line up to have you have a lot of tests, but also it has a lot of different projects that we call IAs. So I'll type in the chat. IA stands for, I think it's it's independent or individual, I forgot, but an IA. So an IA is like a major project. And in the sciences, you have to do like a lab, right? So in chemistry and biology, you have to do like a 2-week lab. And in other things, you have to write maybe a really long essay. So in the first semester, it became really, really stressful. But by then, it's way too late to quit, right? Unless you really, really want to quit. But if you do, it really affects your university decisions. But in that time, I didn't really want to quit. It was in grade 11 after first semester where you'll realize that a lot of the courses maybe are really, really hard and you get really bad grades. And you might be thinking, well, I would just do better in the normal program. I would say quitting in that time is if you do want to quit, it's a really, really good time to do so because it won't really affect your university decisions, especially if you're applying to Canada. Quitting or even just doing IB doesn't really do anything, in my opinion, besides maybe offering better chances at certain universities. So some universities, even though they don't say so, they really value you being an IB. So, that's up to you. But I would say it really depends on what you think you'll be able to achieve on either the IB program or the normal program. Any other thoughts that someone wants to give? If not, I'll move on to the next question. Okay, so next question I see in the chat is if I just want to apply for university in Canada, is it helpful to take AP courses? I did not take an AP program, so Jessica, can you answer this question?
Okay, sorry. The question is, what is the question?
It's in the chat. So sorry if I mispronounced your name. Jun Gang, something like that. Yeah, like he typed in the chat a question about AP courses. Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. Okay. If I want to apply for university in Canada, is it helpful or important to take AP classes? I'm gonna be honest, not really. And the reason why I say this is because AP courses in Canada allow you to have a transfer credit at university. So let's say you take AP chemistry and you go to like, I don't know, like U of T Life Sci, they will let you skip the first year of chemistry and then just allow you to take second year instead. The problem with this is that you're going to need that review from first year. You're going to want some transition time where the courses are not so difficult, especially because university courses do go a little bit more in depth than an AP course. In whatever subject it is, like usually in terms of theory, they'll go a little bit deeper. So because of that, you still want to take that first year course to make sure that you still have a good foothold for the second year courses. So AP courses, I think, offer some additional value, but that's mostly if you are concerned about being able to afford your 4 years of university and you want to not pay for some of the courses.
Okay, cool. So just to reiterate, Jessica said that it's not really necessary. It's the same with IB, not completely the same, but IB also has transfer credits in university. Not at every university, but at some. So if you really want to get ahead in university, for example, if I took a higher level, I don't know, like economics, I can get a transfer credit at most Canadian universities if I score good enough on my final IB exam. So if you want to get ahead in that aspect, then go for it. And of course, if you research online at certain universities, if you just search, do you consider AP or IB scores in your applications? Most universities say no, but the truth is maybe they do, right? You'll never know, right? So if you think that there's prestige in this program, then you should do it, because universities maybe think the same. Any other questions? Ooh, okay. So D in the with the Raptors logo asks, what topic should my EE topic be on? So for anyone that is unsure of what an EE is, it stands for extended essay. So extended essay. And an extended essay is a thing in the IB program that is basically, I think it's a 3,000 word essay that you have to write. I'm pretty sure it's 3,000. And you have to write it in your grade 11. You should figure out, they recommend you don't have to do very intense like lab stuff on. So there were topics that people chose that involved a lot of kind of lab techniques and a lot of different things that are outside of what is taught in high school. So, for example, the initial essay idea I had was to do something involved with smell and how it affects your like your brain, but that's obviously too advanced. So I got rejected on that topic, right? So do something that is not too complicated, but try to be unique in the sense that you don't want to have something so generic that you can just have ChatGPT make up right away, right? Try to do things if you're doing something involved with humanities, do things that are really like comparative, right? If you're comparing different things, maybe that is more unique than just saying what happened in history. When it comes to the sciences, obviously find something that is you want to do in the lab. You can choose to just go online and find lab results and write on it, but that's not recommended if you're writing about the sciences. So do something that you think you can do in a school lab that is not, crazy advanced and requires insane amount of work. And for math, I can't really speak on it, but just try to be special. Just before, I get any other questions, I'll speak a little more on extended essay. Don't overthink it. It's not really important. Like, I really don't think it's important. It does not affect your IB score, like almost at all. Um, and a lot of times, the grade that you're applying with for your extended essay is going to be an A. So it's an A, B, or a C, right? And obviously there's a fail as well. But most people, if you know your teacher or advisor well enough, you will get an A as long as not like it's not AI, as long as it's not, really bad, you will get an A. Obviously, if you're not friends with your advisor, you'll get like a B, but try your best on that. It's not a really big deal. Any other questions? I'll wait like a minute or two. If you have any questions, you can just speak out loud if you want as well. Oh, I see one. Never mind. It's a thank you. Yeah, all good. Well, I mean, if there isn't any more questions, like I'll stay behind for a few more minutes, but you guys are all, obviously free to go. It's not a class. So thank you guys for attending. And we hope to see you whenever, whether it be through classes involved with our organizations or just through more seminars we host. Just feel free to drop by, ask any questions, and do anything, right? But yeah, thank you guys for attending. If there's more questions.
Thank you, Jared.
Yeah.